Everyone wants more money, but most of us weren't taught how to create an abundant life. That's where the More Money Show comes in. If you're ready to have more money, create more freedom, and experience more fun, turn the volume up. It's time to learn how to create the prosperity and life you have been dreaming of. Here's your host, Cassie Parks.
Hello and welcome to this episode. I am normally your host, Cassie Parks, and today I'm actually letting Adam and Vanessa Lambert of Be the Wellness interview me. I'm turning the tables as part of their Year of Growth series interview. So this is something that if you've been listening, you know that we do. I give everybody a chance to just ask whatever you want, really. So welcome back, Adam and Vanessa. Thanks for being here.
For having us. This is so exciting to turn the tables.
Yeah.
I'm super excited because it's even more fun. I think we said this in the last interview, but you guys have interviewed me before, and now I'm excited because you get to interview me after having been through the program, which is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And for listeners out there who don't know where we interviewed you before, it was on our podcast at Be the Wellness. And it is a really different experience having interviewed you kind of, you know, as inquisitors about your process and what you do and all of that good stuff. But now having been through the process, it's a whole different ballgame. So it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I love it. And if you guys want to check out Adam and Vanessa's podcast, it's, as she said, it's Be the Wellness, and it's BEE, like honeybee, thewellness.com.
Yes. Awesome. So let's get to it. Or as Adam said, let's start the cross-examination.
Love it.
So I want to start out by just asking you to kind of, turn back the clock and tell us about the moment that you realized you had control over your abundance story. So maybe it was that total download of like, this is real. I actually have some say about how my life goes. Or maybe it was, like over the course of a few months or years. But what was that like aha moment when it just suddenly hit you that like, oh, wow, I really have a say in how this whole thing goes?
Yeah, I love this question. And I was glad I got it a little bit early so I could really think about it today. Because I think there's two moments. You know how often we like things will come in pieces and then all of a sudden it's like all the pieces fit together. Mm-hmm. So I think there were two main pieces. And one of them was I went to this event, which was literally about, it was all about passive income opportunities. And I think the biggest thing about, and it like you could buy all these programs and that was fine. But I think for me, the biggest takeaway was that it was 3 days, I don't know, 12. So there's at least 40 different ways that people showed that you could create a passive income. Mm. And so I think for me, that really started opening the door. Like, okay, there are people out there who do this differently, who don't have a job. I had read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I knew, the difference in, like having a business and making money and going to a job. But like, this was a whole new level of like, okay, it can be easier. Mm. And the second really big piece was I was doing what I started doing, which was this energetic work of shifting thoughts and beliefs. And I traded with somebody else who was also trained. And I was doing a session, and we were at that point, I think, meeting like every week in trading sessions or something. And this session, which it's kind of like this process is you don't choose your own adventure, but that's the best way to describe it, is it's all of these options. And by muscle checking it, you get the path that you're taking to sort of heal or shift whatever the thing is. Mm-hmm. And we started doing this session one day, and it was the exact same session, literally, that we had done the week before. And I think that was the moment where I was like, I can have control over this, but I have to stop trying to fix it.
Mm. That's a huge distinction.
Yeah. And so I think that's the moment I started creating it. And I was like, okay, you have control, but it's this way that you have control. It's not the way that I thought it was.
You have control through surrendering almost.
Yeah, through surrendering and choosing to write the story versus trying to edit your old story.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put that, because as soon as you go about trying to fix something, you're fundamentally like admitting that there's a problem with it. You know what I mean? Like this is broken, right? Yeah. Versus just writing a new one. That's like, all right, blank slate. not over here, we're just moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was really the day I was like, okay, if I want to do this differently, I have to pull out that blank slate, that blank page, and start writing my own story that isn't based on anything in my past or in opposition to anything in my past.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I love that. I think that's so important for people to hear. And I think even all of the conversations that we've had and even interviewing you, I've never heard it put that way from you. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what's your actual process for creating your programs? Like, how do you go about doing that? Do you have sort of your own internal methodology for sort of the framework? I mean, I know being a writer, clearly you have, outline sort of as part of a default setting somewhere.
Yeah.
But is it something that you really work through as a methodical process, or is it just a download from the universe?
It's something more along the download from the universe type thing or inspiration. When I wrote Manifest 10K, I outlined it literally a half an hour. I was talking to a friend who she's in a network marketing company, and she was just saying, like, I don't know who to follow up with, like, because people tell me it's the money, but is it really the money or is it an excuse? And I'm like, it's $350. Like, I could create a program where anyone could, and literally it just came out of my mouth. I'd never thought about it before. I'm like, I could create a program that teaches anyone how to manifest $350, right? And I said, then you could give it to them for free. I wasn't even thinking about selling it. And that's also part of, for me in my process, what I think is true inspiration is when it's just like, this needs to be created versus trying to create something to sell or do or whatever. And I said, I can create that for you, and then you can give it to them. And if they do it, like, they're serious. And if they don't do it, they were just giving you an excuse. And it was, it was really this, it was just like just a random conversation. And we got off the phone, and I went and I just pulled out a notebook and I wrote down like 30 different exercises that I would have people do, which were all things that I had done and integrated different things that I'd done. And then it sat for actually over 6 months, or maybe exactly 6 months, until I quit my job. After I quit my job, then I was like, oh, I need to pull that program out and I want to do it for myself. And then that's when I actually started writing it and deciding, okay, what did I want in it? And I wanted these stories that amped up your belief every day and all this stuff, and sort of writing it. And then, the scripting workshop really came out of actually writing my second book. It was actually my third book, but my second book on real estate. I had written the first one over like 6 weeks or whatever. I'd done this program. And then my publisher was doing this event for the first time to write a book in 3 days. And I was like, I had got this inspiration, like, oh, you need to write a book about real estate investing. And I asked her, I said, can I like tag along and do it in 3 days with you? And she goes, sure, that would be fun. I want more case studies. And so I did it. And what I learned, what was amazing about that, and sort of how I learned about the scripting workshop to create that, is that once I wrote that book, I had just quit my job. So I didn't have an income. I hadn't established my business income, my self-employed income. So I didn't think I was going to be able to buy and sell any properties for a while. I had like come to that conclusion when I left my job, like, okay. And yet after I wrote that book, about 6 weeks later, I was under contract to buy and sell. I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 different properties. And because things just worked out, like, it was like, oh, like, somebody will loan me this money. Oh, okay, cool. I have this much and I can make it in it. And when I realized that, I was like, that's the 3 days worth of energy that I put into that book. And so I had been scripting as I wrote Manifest 10K. And then I was like, what if you put these together in this period of, this intense 3 days, what magic would that create? And so that's how I created it.
Wow. So out of curiosity, did your friend using the Manifest $350 tool?
She does share it with her friends, with people now. It was further removed. She did use it now. And what was most interesting about that is that the first round of money, when I did it, when I divided out the total manifested based on what I got paid, because it used to be pay after you manifest, by the number of people that took it, it almost came out to, it was like $347 a person on average. Obviously some people were a lot more. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. I was like, wow.
Wow, that is a trip. So
Yeah.
I think this is actually, I just want to hover on one point that you made there, which is that you create from a place of inspiration instead of a place of like searching for what you think will sell, essentially, right?
Yeah.
I think that's so important because I actually really, we've struggled with that over the years in our own business. Is, you as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, and a lot of the information out there is, test and retest, see if this product works, see if that product works. Don't do anything until you know you have a market for it. And so there's kind of this conflicting sense of, well, I feel in my heart, this is my message and this is something I want to create, versus, the technical side of it, or the more, formal side of it, where people will sort of discourage you from that. So I really think that that's an important distinction for people to hear, is that it's okay to create from that place of divine inspiration.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, there's an interesting thing I think that happens with business, and I think because there's people out there who are their soul's purpose, or their passion, or the thing that they bring to this world is fundamentally being a business person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so that for them, they're like, no, I'm a business person. I'm doing this is what I want to do. Like, this is the thing. And so then going out and testing all of these different products or services or whatever it is, that's them expressing what it is that they want,
Yeah.
From this other piece of it, it's where you have this gift, you have something in you that you want to get out, and trying to negotiate, what that looks like based on what somebody's going to buy is a tricky story,
Yeah.
So on our last podcast, we were talking about how the work works, but it depends on how open the student is to the information and coaching. And what we mean by that, or what I think you meant by that when you said it, is that, you hear this in a lot of different programs. Like, if you do the work, it works, essentially, right? But there is that sense of, do you actually surrender to the process, and do you really engage with the work, or do you just go through it without engagement? So I'd love for you to just expand on that and help people understand the difference.
Oh, yeah. So I think you can do the work without doing the work, which you kind of alluded to, right? You can do the assignments, you can post them sometimes, but one of the ways that I think actually doing the work, a difference between just doing it and really doing it, is posting them and being real with them, because that's vulnerable. Like, posting them means I can come back and I can do coaching. And I think both of you experienced that. It was like, this is what I did. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's look at it this way, or let's do this. Right. And so there's, that's part of doing the work, is being open to getting, like, not just doing the work, but getting the coaching. I think one of the biggest things people get hung up on is they try and go into coaching and be perfect. And you can't be perfect if you're getting coaching, because you wouldn't need that coaching if you were perfect at that thing.
Right. Come in and get 100% on their assignment, and not, and what you're saying is that actually you want to just do it so that you can be corrected, so to speak.
Yeah. You want to get, like, I don't know, maybe a 50 or 60, so that we can then explore what actually gets you to 100 for you. Right. Because I think the common mistake that people have, and maybe it happens in other programs, I don't know, but is that there's like this right answer. And with coaching, there's just the right answer for you. Like, and it's different for every individual across the table. We're looking for your right answer, the one that's for you. And so there is no like perfect answer guide, it doesn't go A, B, B, D, E, it's, we're looking for what's right for you, and what grows you, and what opens up to what you really want. And so I think being open, and if I could give one piece of advice to people getting coaching, it would really be to drop the need to be perfect, and to actually want to be to actually want to get coached, to see when your coach has feedback, that's awesome, because that's where the growth happens.
Oh, I love that.
That's the spot.
As a recovering perfectionist, I totally get that. And like, it's hard, right? Because you want to do you feel like for some reason that the coaching is like like you did it wrong or something, and it's like, no, that means you're doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah. When you get feedback, it absolutely means you're doing it right.
I love that.
So this next question kind of probably dovetails into the answer in the last one, but what is the single most important thing that someone could get to start the cascade of change in their story, in their abundance story?
I think the single most important, like, that they could get in their head is that they don't have to, you get to start where you are. Like, your new story starts today. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday or, a week ago. It doesn't matter if you have $100 million in the bank or it's a negative 100. Like, your new story starts in this moment. And if you just decide what the story is you want to start telling, and you start telling that and leave the explanations. Like, it doesn't matter how it doesn't matter if your grandfather told you whatever when you were 5. Like, sometimes that's cool to understand where that thought comes from, but the most important thing is that actually doesn't matter in going forward. You get to choose.
Excellent. Spot, because it really is. It's where, well, I mean, it's certainly a large part of where I find myself stuck, is in that stuff. And it's like, it's so easy to look back for reasons why something isn't going to work, or reasons why they are they are the way they are. And obviously, history is a great teacher, but you just can't get stuck there. So I love it.
Me too. It's almost like I want to even, for me, something that's been beneficial is even taking it one step further and actually almost seeing all of that stuff as a blessing too. Like it taught you so many great things, but the lesson, you've got it. You got the lesson. You got the understanding from it. Now it's time to move forward with the new lesson.
Yeah. And I think that's it, right? It's like, I got that. Okay, cool. I know that now. Like, now I get to move forward. That's such an important key too.
Totally. So after all the years of coaching and helping people establish all the different habits, what's the one thing that you yourself do every single day to keep your abundant mindset?
I love this question. And I thought about it because the immediate answer is scripting. Like, I script almost every day, or I do some sort of stepping into my future self every day. And yet, like, it's only half the answer, because the other things have sort of become ingrained. Like the habits, you mentioned habits, like the things that I do for abundance that I teach people have just become, I don't consciously do them anymore. I don't say like, I'm going to do this because I want an abundance mindset. I just created the habit of getting excited about all money that comes in, about, just seeing everything as evidence. Like, all of those things have become such a habit that it's almost not fair to say like, oh, I just script, because that's not what it is. Because all of those things also come into play. They're just not things I think about anymore.
Yeah, I totally get that. So I'm curious too, just to kind of follow up on that. Do you use music as an activation tool for you?
Yeah, I do. I think that some of my clients use it more, which is sort of what the program is designed, is to help you figure out what feels best and what's your most activation tool. The one that I go back to that's like, that comes out of Manifest 10K is like watching like one of my favorite watching one of my favorite shows in the middle of the day for 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I would say like some people still use their Manifest 10K play. Like, I will use that and I'll go back. I know those certain songs that feel like freedom to me, and I'll go find those. But I'll be more prone to, like, if I just need that quick switch, I'll remind myself, like, you can take a 15-minute break and like watch something that makes you laugh. Like, you can watch Friends or The Office or whatever, because that feels really abundant to me. And that was part of my original, feeling like freedom list was to just stop in the middle of the day and watch TV for 20 minutes.
I love it.
Yeah, it's such a good one, because it is like, especially if you come from like, I guess almost any work environment. I mean,
yeah.
The new tech firms and stuff have kind of nailed some of this stuff with their little nap pods and things like that. But
yeah.
when you come from sort of the daily grind where your time is being monitored fundamentally, through the output output of what's going on, it can be an interesting habit to break, right? Once you
Yeah.
have to think about that, what a massive freedom. And I know for me personally, the feeling of freedom 100% equals abundance. It's like I get to do what I want, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I love it. And it could be like go outside for a walk, but just reminding myself like, oh, you created this freedom, like use it.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, because isn't it funny how we'll create the freedom, but then still keep ourselves in jail?
Yeah. I mean, that's where I was when I did Manifest 10K for the second. I did it as I wrote it the first time. And when I switched it to Manifest 10K, I did it a second time. And that's what made me look at that. I was like, you're still behaving like you didn't create this freedom choice. Like you're still chaining yourself to this desk when you don't have to. Like, go enjoy what you created.
Yeah. Yeah. What an interesting thing to realize about your just sort of tendencies, you know?
Yeah.
I'm so busy. I just got to do this. You're like, oh man, you got 4 things to do today. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how can people get started today? Like right now, today, changing their abundance story? What's something that someone's listening to this and they could activate this thing right now?
Ooh, I love this. Decide who you want to be when it comes to money. Like make a decision. Like I'm good with money. I have more than enough money. I like money always works out for me. Like whatever it is, just make a decision about one thing about who you want to be when it comes to money and that relationship with money and that experience of money. Just because you'd be amazed at what making that decision, like what all that shifts and opens up in your life. And so if there's one place to start, it's just decide this is who I want to be when it comes to money.
Got it.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like an identity based shift, right?
Yes.
Because there's so many people like, oh man, the holidays are always so stressful because I'm bad with money. You know what I mean? Or I didn't save money, or I did, this, that, or the other thing. And I bet that internal mantra goes on like on loop for a lot of people. I mean, I know I've certainly gone through bouts of that. And it's like, if you could just shift that to, I'm good with money and the holidays are awesome because I always have enough to buy buy everybody presents or whatever it is, that's a significant change in your overall outlook.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can stop that, like you mentioned, it is a loop like that just plays. And so once you can decide like, no, I want to create this different, I want to be this different person, it starts to at least stop the loop. Even if you don't get the new one created yet, it stops that old loop because you're like, no, like that's not the song I'm listening to anymore.
I'm curious, Cassie, if obviously this is your line of work and this is also your passion. Personally for you, is the goal to reach a point where you feel completely content with what you've created in terms of your abundance? Or do you think you'll always be striving to create more abundance and like to just keep creating more and more?
I think of a 2-part answer. Like I was content when I left my job and I had my freedom, like my financial freedom, I had enough passive income to pay my bills, which wasn't like living like a millionaire, which is also one of my favorite things because I think that contentness that you're talking about is what creates more and it opens us up for more. And so I was content, like to just have that freedom and to live, it wasn't a lot. I actually, the year that I quit my job, I think I lived off of like $22,000 and I didn't even notice it. Like it wasn't like, I wasn't trying to do that. I looked back one day, like just an inspiration hit. And I was like, I wonder like what I did, like, spend last year. And so I added everything up and I'm like, I like added up like 3 times. Cause I'm like, I lived an amazing life. And I'm like, that can't be true. Like, yeah, I was like, how did that happen? But I think for me, that was like, this amazing moment of I am content, I think, in every space that I am. And I create more because it's fun and because it's become this game. And to me, it feels a little more just like opening up than striving now. I think it used to feel like striving. And now that I've had this place where I had, created my freedom and I'm building off of that, it feels like what else is possible? Like, it's really a game now. Like, okay, this is cool. Like, who can I grow into now? And how can I make more money, or how can it be easier? That was actually what this year was a lot about, was stepping back in my business and doing less to make more. Yeah.
What a great idea. Because there is a real tendency to I think, especially once we kind of hit all of Maslow's hierarchy, right? And we've got a roof over our heads and we're taken care of and we're not worried about where the next meal's coming from. It's really, I think a lot of people end up sort of looking for a benchmark for what it means to continue to be successful. And often that ends up looking like increasing the bottom line every year, which, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But what if you did it every other year? It's like, this year I'm going to increase the bottom line. Next year I'm going to maintain that bottom line, but make it easier.
Yes.
What a great way to go through that.
Absolutely. And I've actually never thought of putting it in that every other year term, but I love that. That's amazing. Yeah.
Because I think we are in a society that's like, go, 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 strive, strive, strive. You push, 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 right? And so actually delineating and making space for the being of what you've created is such a beautiful way to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody told us once that getting rich makes things more fun, but only for about 3 months. And I know, being someone who used to be on sort of a progressive pay ladder, right, where it's every couple of years you get a incentive and an increase, and then it just comes sort of in marginal, small little steps, and you look back over the last 10 years or whatever, and you're like, oh wow, look at that, I make $40,000 a year more than I used to, but it sure doesn't seem like it. It's I feel like I have all the exact same issues that I did then, and so when you have those sort of incremental increases, I think sometimes it's easy to forget that it's working. All the things that you wanted are coming along. To be able to take that and pause and say, okay, I'm good with this amount of money. I'm going to take this exact amount of money, but I'm going to do it better or more fun, make it easier and more space. Yeah, I like that. I think we should do that.
Oh, I love it. Keep me posted.
Taking next year off. So I'm trying to actually put my finger on, there's a question in here around this sort of content feeling. And I'm thinking about times in my life where I've been motivated to make more money because there's a thing that I want to create, whether it's a trip or, a experience or a article of clothing or whatever it is. A lot of my motivation and sort of drive to strive for something is tied into what it will create. But I think that oftentimes you can get, like Adam's saying, in a loop with that where okay, now you make $40,000 more a year and you don't even notice it because you'd already kind of spent it mentally before it came. So, and so this, I guess my question is, you encourage to delineate, what is that money for? Why do you want to create it? What's it going to be for? But what is that fine line between sort of always spending it before you have it and being content with what you have? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love it. And I love that you brought up, this is part of the process. And the reason, one of the main reasons I have people do that, is we use that information as we go forward. But B, it's because often people are I want more money, I want more money, I want more money, but they don't stop to see, okay, well, what is that more money for? Right. And so that does a couple things. Is sometimes they don't see often when people start this process so there's a couple different things that happen when people start getting clear about what do they want the money for, right? Versus just, I want more money. Because that's that's part of the never ending pit too, is okay, I need more money, I want more money. But when we never say what it's for, we don't know when we got there a lot of times. So one of the things that happens is people often realize oh, I already have everything I need and I can be happy in this moment, but I would like this would be fun. Right. Or they realize oh, I've been wanting these things because of XYZ, because I thought they would bring me this, or I thought I would get there. And so they realize like, that's not really what I want. What I want, they might be thinking like, oh, I want this bigger house, blah, blah, blah. But then they're like, oh no, what I really want is like a trip to be with my partner, my husband or my wife, and just enjoy them. But I'm thinking that if I get this bigger house, we'll somehow enjoy life more.
Mm.
And then I forgot what the third one is. I had it when I started, but it's just like, that's really where we start to understand, why do we want money? And it's partly understanding sort of our past story and what it is. And sometimes it's the things, oftentimes like money does kind of lose that fun because we just think we need more and more. But part of identifying what we want is like, it opens that channel to what is going to get us excited about money again. What is going to get us, what is going to activate that happy? What's that new place that we haven't been in a while in terms of money? Or maybe sometimes it's ever, but a lot of times it's in a while. It's like, oh, at one point in my life, I was really happy because I could invest money in XYZ, but that sort of lost its luster because it's not fun anymore, or whatever.
Mhm.
So I think I do it because it helps us see what else is going on. And so the second part of your question was like, how do we what's the difference? How do we define that, but also be content, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so part of that is that second step with that feeling. So often we want money because we think it's going to get us XYZ. Right. And if we can go get whatever that, if XYZ is going to help us feel more excited about life, if we can find ways to activate excitement about life in other ways, that money, that adds to that contentness, right? Then the money it's fun and it's awesome when it shows up, but it's not necessary. We don't have to keep striving. We can be content in this moment until money shows up.
Oh, so
Yeah.
true. I think, it's money, like this money discovery and really looking at creating abundance and going through this process, I think is honestly one of the most spiritual paths that someone could take. And I think that people wouldn't really recognize that because they think like, oh yeah, it's so spiritual, you're trying to be rich.
Right.
But what it brings out for you is really what's there for you in your soul, whether you actually love your life, whether you really love yourself, what the self-talk is about. Like, it's a really spiritual path to walk, and it's almost like money is just the teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a common language, right? So because everybody has some feeling about money.
Yeah.
You know what it's used for. When if you start talking about the more esoteric things, like, well, make sure you're vibrating at the appropriate level and your energy is this. And people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. Money. You want more money? They're like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, actually, I got 10 things that I would do with more money. Tell me more.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said that because it's so true. And for me, it is like one of the most spiritual things you can do because it touches everything. It does touch who you are in your soul. It shows you if you're being authentic to that, or you're trying to get something because you're trying to check those success boxes that somebody else put out for you.
Mhm.
And it's it's just who you are and how are you creating your happiness and your self-worth. What do you believe you're worthy of having in your life? Like, are you worthy of attracting it, and are you worthy of keeping it? And are you investing it in your happiness, or are you investing it in things that you think are going to be there? So I love that you said that because it is spiritual and it is soul work, I think.
Totally.
Yeah, another thing that you mentioned just reminded me of something I wanted to say earlier, which is that this idea of writing down, what it is that you would use the money for. I know for me, going through the process was really good at helping me kind of highlight, with your encouragement and coaching, highlight the things that it's just what you said. So some boxes to check that were fundamentally somebody else's idea. Like, what does abundance look like for somebody else? And you're like, oh, well, let's see. I don't know. I mean, a jet would be cool, and like, you just kind of go through all of these different things, and I'm keeping the jet because it is cool.
Right. Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, well, I don't know. Like, does that really inspire me? What about that is actually interesting? Is it just a marker of success, or is it something that really fires me up? And I think that is such a useful tool for that, because if you're fundamentally trying to create to fulfill somebody else's hopes and dreams, then the odds of succeeding, well, I don't know what the odds of succeeding, how that changes it, but the odds of being like happy when you get there are pretty low.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I again have this question that's kind of floating out here that I'm going to try to connect with, but I wonder if you notice a pattern in terms of when people start to create more abundance, if you notice that they really start to realize that it becomes less about them and more about what they can give, if that makes sense. So less about actually what they can create in terms of the things they can buy and the things they can do. And if you start to notice after a while with your clients that it becomes more about what they can give with the abundance they have.
Yeah, I would say it's about 50-50 because a lot of my client, it depends on who they are. And now I'm going to go after this call, I'm going to analyze it in terms of money stories too, like former money stories, to see if I can see that pattern. But so sometimes, often people will come in and that will be the main thing. Like, I want to create all this money to give it away.
Mm-hmm.
And which is cool, but that's sort of speaking in that spiritual space is, it's a little like that's where we need to work on their worth, is that I can have it and I can share it. It doesn't all have to be for someone else. It doesn't all have to be for me. And so that's sort of one evolution of the path. And I think another one is where they come in wanting all this stuff, which often comes from sort of that list in someone else's thing. Like Adam was just talking about, like someone else's list, and that they want that. And they evolve to either wanting the things that are like more experiences and being with their loved ones and time and being, and or giving. Like a lot of times the giving does evolve, but I would even say a lot of my clients come in and want to give in the beginning. And I would say it's probably 50-50, like 50-50. It's, I want to give it all. Like, I just want to manifest money to give it all away. And they have to find where they fit into that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do we create our life and give, but not be giving everything? And then the other part is coming in with sort of that list of things and then realizing it's not about that. And it always happens at some point in the program. I say always, but I almost always, I hear it from many people where it's like, oh, it's not about the list anymore. It's about how easy my life is, or it's about how fun my life is. Like, it's become about these different things, which, we all start generally thinking money is going to solve all the problems.
Totally.
And so that it makes sense. And then it's like, oh no, I don't need that to solve the problem. I can solve the problem another way. And then money's going to naturally come in.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Because, I think there's so many coaches out there that you can probably get coaching around money and success. And there's all these different models. But like, what I really love about the way that you are approaching this stuff is that, yeah, money is just the tool, but what is it what's the experience of your life you want to have? Like, what is the emotion and what is the feeling that you want to have about the way that you live your life? And I think that that's such a cool, important thing that people out there listening are considering, if this coaching is right for them. It's like, that to me is such a huge distinction of the way that you go about doing your work compared to anyone else that I've come across.
Thank you. Yeah, it is like, it's what's behind the money. And I always, I don't know why, but this story just popped into my head, because people will so often put like that big, huge beach house on their vision board, which is not that wouldn't be awesome. Right. But I think it's more like that, that gigantic beach house goes on our vision board because of what we think the life looks like inside.
Right.
100%, because I have that beach house on my and I am throwing rad parties, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so it's like, we think, and I love that you know what you're doing, because I think a lot of people don't. They think like, oh, that person has so much more time. Oh, that person isn't stressed. Oh, that person isn't this. Right. When often we don't know if that's true. Like, that person who has that house could be working 100 hours a week, totally not have a good relationship. And they might be like, have all those things, or they might not. Right. But we want the house because we think it's going to give us like this awesome space space and all these other things, when we have that power to create that now. Like, which I know I love that. I love that you said it's rad parties, because I know you already throw rad parties.
I
So
do,
like,
yes.
you're already being that person now. They're just going to get even more rad.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think the gratitude piece, right? Like appreciating what already is so huge. And I think that was the huge change for me with your work, was just, you don't have to wait to be that person until you get the house. Like you have that, you make your house that now, have parties here and create the space now, and it will just keep expanding from there. So it's just such important work for people, because it's like, at the end of the day, it's not about the money. Money is this tool, but it's really about like your life. This is your life, people.
Yes, it is your life, and it's so important.
It's so important. Yeah, it's the only one you get for sure.
Right.
I can't tell you for sure if it's the only one you get, but it's the only one you get for sure.
It's the only one you remember that you got.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
I may have lived a million of them, but I don't remember any of them. Except for
Yeah.
So get with it,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cassie. This was such a pleasure and a privilege to turn the tables and get to just pick your brain and go even deeper into the process. And obviously having such a deeper understanding of the impact of it now, it just makes it even more special. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys for doing it and for asking the questions. I loved having you in the program, and I love being interviewed by you. And I know this was super beneficial for everyone listening. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anytime.
Yeah. And if you guys love hearing Adam and Vanessa, because they're so fun, and they're like this on their show, so make sure you check out their podcast, as well as all the super cool talk about living your life and experiencing your life. Go to Be the Wellness, BEEthewellness.com, and check them out, and check out their podcast.
Thank you for joining us on the More Money Show. To learn how to attract more money into your life, go to your favorite book retailer and order Cassie's book, Manifest $10,000.